Good morning. As you can see, I'm the AI guy. All right, we're going to talk about, is AI more creative than humans? So I wanted to bring you guys back to 2016. Everyone's talking about AI now, but there was a pivotal moment that happened with a system called AlphaGo. And this really took me back. AlphaGo was, this was quoted by Lisa Dole, the top Go player. And if you're unfamiliar with Go, it's a very strategic game, more powerful in terms of combinations than that of chess. His comment after being beaten by this computer, VIA 2016, was, I thought AlphaGo was based on probability and calculation, and that it was merely a machine. But when I saw this one move, I changed my mind. And surely it has to be creative. So the move that it talks about is move 37, and it had a 1 in 10,000 chance of being played on average in a Go game. So AlphaGo made this move, and it completely threw off the player, and then he lost the next 3 games in a row. Now, what was interesting about this on the human side, the human perspective, in the last game, he played what was called a Hail of God move and won, forcing him to be more creative in the process. Before we begin on looking at a few case studies, I wanted to define creativity. And that's the ability to create novel and original ideas and combine them in innovative and unexpected ways. And for the longest time, this has been human. We were the creators, and now we have what some people will call assistants. Other people will call someone to help you with the process is here to potentially guide us in a creative journey. And in this process of thinking and creativity, I wanted to talk about divergent thinking, which many would say is used to explore many possible solutions to an outcome. In a Nature Scientific Support study in 2023, they took a group of humans and they put it against some large language models, and they discovered that the machine, ChatGPT in this case, had a higher creative potential than human participants on those divergent tasks. I don't know the age of the use group, but this was what was discovered in terms of coming up with ideas in a divergent thinking perspective. So we can think about machines can generate original concepts on par with or maybe above average human performance in some use cases. Don't worry, I'll get to some good stuff eventually, but let's go through some case studies. In addition to having a machine versus a human, can we tell right now what we consider to be more creative in a specific field? So this is back in 2022. This is a Mid-Journey image at the time. And it was created by that person right there, Jason M. Allen, and it won a Fine Art Award. And it was later revealed at the end that this was generated by Mid-Journey. Now, to produce this, it took 624 text prompts to come up with the end results. He then took those and he brought it into Photoshop and used other generative AI tools to create the final piece. And then last but not least, he upscaled it and won the competition. Now, to this day, he can't copyright it, but he did win a competition that fine art, primarily being done by humans without the assistance of any AI-generated material. Really interesting case. Now let's just head to photography for a second and to April 2023, where Boris, during this Sony competition, submitted The Electrician. Now he did this as a case study for himself to see what the state of photography is. And it was an AI-generated image, and he won the competition. But he later declined the award because it was AI-generated. Now, good news, recently a human submitted a photo to an AI competition and won against persons as well. So you can check that out, but submitted it and then got disqualified, but he did win. So it's on both ends. But I think the bigger question is, can we tell? What do we believe to be more creative? And in these competitions, those fine lines are being blurred in the work that is being produced from these machines. Now, how do we value creative work? In March 2025, Christie did an AI art auction. It generated more money than expected, over $728,000 for AI artwork of all different types. And most remarkable to me, there was one artist where they fed a robot his bespoke art code, and it created work live in the gallery based on that for an auction. So a robot was producing this live in an art gallery, and then it was sold off. This was asked by 4,000 artists to have this competition canceled, but bringing in more money than expected, we can expect AI art to become more and more a part of what we value to be creative work. Now, what's the problem in all this? I think that AI is a huge disruptor. I've been studying it since 2017, and it's forcing us to redefine what it means to be creative and the humanity behind it. I also think that the problem with, if we talk about text-to-image or text-to-video tools, we can produce results in seconds and in really fast, creative ways. Apps such as Midjourney, you could enter a couple of things in brackets and have 1,000 photos in 1 minute. Not a joke. So, talking about the problem, we have it being an enhancer, already coming in at a time of uncertainty to many artists whose lives were changed after COVID and the pandemic. And now we are at a place where several artists and creatives are fearful that people who have not studied their discipline will replace the jobs of them from the tools that they're using. And the truth is, in some degrees, this is happening. It is replacing work. It also compounds feelings of uncertainty that we have to preserve our craft. It's not slowing down, meaning that most of these companies are going forward and scaling up their algorithms. But I think there's also a question when it comes to how do we give new work value? You know, the work of artists, now that people see these machines who don't understand the craft, think that this work might be less valuable that we put out there. And this is from people who have studied it for decades and even centuries. Okay, I want to go back to the beginning and rephrase my question, because I don't think we're asking the right one. I think the most important thing when we think about large language models or image generation is where is the opportunity in all of this, okay? I ask myself two questions when I look at AI and how it's changing my field of post-production. And one is, what kind of creativity do I want to preserve? And the next one is, what kind of co-creativity am I willing to embrace in that process? Going to some more problems with AI and creativity. If you lean too heavily on AI, this could lead to a lack of original work. And there's a recent study I came across on LinkedIn that you should check out, which talks about writing. And it found that people who get AI to write from the beginning have less neural connections take place from that writing. Versus if you were to write from scratch and then use a GPT to potentially check, fact check, or even make sure that it's going to match up with some of your higher goals, you have a much better chance of being involved in that creative process. So I say AI can only get us so far at this point, and it's a really big question of where do we want to meet it if we're using it, and when. Can we look at our own creative baseline? There's been a lot of talk today about what it means to be creative, and we all have ideas of what that means to us. When was the last time that we checked in on our own creativity, looking at our strengths and weaknesses, and then seeing where, if at all, AI might fit into this process to assist us in certain types of production? Another problem I see is that Gen AI doesn't get its data from the present. It gets it from the past, a bunch of data that's fed into a model that's then released to the public. And if we think about this, while that data is a lot, because it's scraping the entire internet, it's not infinite. And in addition to this, with more guardrails that are taking place where it comes to copywritten content, the solution that some of these companies have come with is synthetic data. So it's training these models on images that were generated or writing that was generated from an LLM. So what does this lead us? Is this going to create a world of sameness when it comes two large language models when it comes to generated images. And you might be able to see it in some of your feeds. Mine are completely taken over by AI content for multiple reasons. So in this world, who's going to stand out? I also think it's one thing to have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of ideas, and it's another thing to find those connections and action them and put them into something tangible that you can then use and produce, and that's a really rare skill. And last but not least, what about letting the mind wander outside of the data box? Well, one of my favorite forms of thinking these days is diffuse thinking. Many of you have probably experienced it, where you're on a train ride staring out the window. Maybe you get your best ideas in the shower or on a jog. You find connections in moments of solitude. That's a very human act. And that's something that a computer can't quite mimic because it's based on focused thinking. Thank you.